Right now. All right. So welcome everyone to our Nebraska Nature Nerd Night. This is our third one of the year.
I think so, yeah.
Far. Yeah, third one of the year so far. And we're going to be talking about fungi tonight. So if you've joined a Nature Nerd Night before, you kind of know how this beginning goes.
We might have some new people tonight.
Let's hope so.
So like,
you're in for a treat.
Yeah, well, we'll see. They can let us know.
All right. So here's how we're going to start.
All right. Are you ready?
All right. If you're a nature-loving science nerd, we think that you just might be happy like us to start Nebraska Nature Nerd Night. Turtles, fish, and vertebrates, disease, and fungi too. You're a curious brainiac, we've got a show for you. All right, that gets so nerdier every time we do it.
It's a little better than last time, but it was great.
Yeah. All right. Well, welcome everyone to our Nebraska Nature Nerd Night program. We do these the third Tuesday of every single month. And so tonight we're going to be talking about fantastic fungi. So my name is Monica McCoubry, and I am the Wildlife Education Specialist with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission.
I'm Amber Schultz. I'm the Wildlife Education Program Manager with the Fish and Wildlife Education Division at Nebraska Game and Parks. And like Monica said, we're talking about the world of fungi tonight. We have some incredible experts with us tonight. We have an incredible moderator. And this is also a special episode. It's in partnership with the City Nature Challenge speaker series that's happening in Nebraska. And our moderator will speak more about that throughout the show, because it's a really cool opportunity. If you're nerdy, if you're excited about nature and science in Nebraska and you want to participate in finding some cool stuff for community science, this is a cool opportunity that we'll speak about. So we're going to focus on fungi tonight, though. And I just want to introduce our moderator, Allie Mays. She's our community science education specialist at the Fish and Wildlife Education Division as well. And how about the experts? That's what people are here for. So,
well, we have some pretty fun guys tonight.
I was wondering how soon that would happen.
Well, I would have done it sooner, but I didn't want to
yeah, that's fine.
Okay, table it. So, all right. So tonight we have two experts with us. We have Chance Bergman. Chance, if you want to wave, project biologist from the Northern Prairies Land Trust. So Chance is a co-working partner with the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. He actually works in the southeast portion of the state, kind of around the Indian Cave area, restoring oak woodlands on state ground and private lands. While in those woods, Chance also likes to study mushrooms and forming fungi and how they fit kind of ecologically into the ecosystem. He's also my go-to Instagram person when I need photos of Nebraska fungi. So
sweet, that's good to know.
And then we also have Dr. Joshua Herr with us tonight, who is a professor at the University of Nebraska. And Dr. Herr is an assistant professor in the Department of Plant Pathology. And he studies kind of the diversity of fungi with focusing on those that form mushrooms. This research is mostly laboratory, is largely focused on understanding how fungi interact with plants and mostly the beneficial effects of how they kind of the roots and how they inhabit those fungi. So it's good diversity.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I hope that we will learn more about some of that.
Yes, all that stuff that I just threw at you, we're going to actually talk about what that means.
Hopefully by the end of it, everyone will understand maybe some of his research and some cool stuff about Nebraska fungi. But before we get started in the meat of it, I wanted to interview Chance and Josh. What tell us about how you got into the world of mushrooms, how you became fungi, and I guess how does that fit into your day job? So let's hear it.
So I think for me, I mean, it certainly began probably back in 2000. I don't know what's up with my focus here, but back in 2014, I started working. I graduated college and I started working for Nebraska Game and Parks at Indian Cave State Park, doing some noxious weed control. And while tromping through the woods out there, I basically had seen things I never knew existed, especially in Nebraska. I was always asking my supervisors, who are very good at plant ID, asking anything I saw out there. They could never really tell me much about fungus. And I basically, just kind of being interested in wanting to know more about these mushrooms I was coming across, I decided to take it upon myself and learn a little bit more about them. That way to be more of an asset to the team. And the more I kind of delve into mushrooms, I started realizing that, they're not all decomposers or parasites. There's ones that actually live in harmony with the trees and certain plants out there. And a lot of the plants that are affected, or like trees especially, are oak trees. Oak trees are like the perfect type of tree for a lot of mushrooms to have these associations with. And once my work, I do a lot of oak woodland restoration. So it kind of fell in my lap perfectly. Hey, these mushrooms, they help out the trees and especially oaks. I should learn more about them. And then furthermore, I realized how little we knew about what existed in our state boundaries.
Wow.
So it kind of, I mean, growing up in the age of Pokemon, this is already starting to sound cliche now, but
Yeah.
I feel like growing up in the age of Pokemon, I came across all these things, and it's just like I wanted to find out what was all
You're
here
gonna catch them
within our
all.
state. Yeah, gonna get them all.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I got dragged into mushrooms. So
That's incredible.
Right.
Very cool. Thanks, Chance. And what about you, Josh?
I got my start. So I grew up in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania, which calls itself the mushroom capital of the world.
Wow.
And
Like
it's where most of our button mushrooms come from. So if you go to the grocery store, you can find them from Kennett Square. But because of that, I grew up around mushrooms, and I thought they were interesting. But I wasn't. I really thought I wanted to go to medical school. So I went to college, and I needed to get more research credits. And I found out that there was a professor who was, a pretty interesting guy. And I looked him up, and I'm like, I think my grandparents have his mushroom identification book. And this was Orson Miller. So I started working in Orson Miller's lab. He wrote Mushrooms of North America, which is the big selling mushroom textbook, or, identification book. And that was, when I was in college. So, and then I just kind of got hooked from there. This is pre-internet, which dates me a little bit. So the only way to learn mushrooms was just to get a guide and just to walk around and then try to talk with an expert. So like kind of shadowing behind him was very good. And then I did a master's degree in mycology and a PhD, and focused on mushrooms associated with trees. Like Chance said, I studied the genus Lactarius, the milk mushrooms for my master's degree, and then more broadly in other groups for my PhD work. So, and I've just been doing that since. I was the former state mycologist for the state of Oregon for a while, and I've been working for poison control for about 25 years, identifying fungi. Most of the time, those aren't very fun fungi to identify, because I get contents of someone's stomach sent to me overnight, and I have to identify the fungi that are there. It's not like I'm looking at a real mushroom. So that's not very much fun, but that's what I do in the day job, and teach students about mushrooms. And
Did you say you were the state mycologist of Oregon?
yeah, it was really fun.
Incredible.
I'm not trying to knock Nebraska, but because of all the rain in Oregon, it's just, sometimes you can't walk without stepping on them there. So it's really, it was a great place to work.
Yeah.
But yeah,
that's cool. Do we, sorry, I'm
I don't
jumping
think
with questions,
Nebraska,
but do we have a state mycologist? Yeah.
I don't think so. There's a bunch in Oregon. So, and everybody has their specializations. So
We don't even have a state reptile. I just want to.
Okay. Yeah, I know. You've been
We let
hitting on
one of the
that.
state mycologist.
Do we have a state mushroom? We're going to get into that.
We're gonna get there.
We will by the end of the night.
it's a
If
good
we don't.
question.
Maybe.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
I heard you say mycologist. Do you want to speak to that really quick, or define what is a mycologist, in case our friends tonight don't know? Would you both do you both identify as a mycologist then, or can I be a mycologist if I just enjoy mushrooms? Is it a hobbyist thing? Do you want to speak to that? Either of you.
A mycologist is just anybody who studies fungi. So
Okay.
of course you can be a mycologist if you want to identify yourself like that. That'd be great.
Cool. Mycology.
Awesome
Okay.
to know.
And so
Amazing.
mycology just, myco is, basically hyphae, or the threads of the fungi, and then ology is the study of. So
Cool.
Interesting.
It's fascinating.
So since you want to be a mycologist,
Yes.
and I want to be a mycologist, and we have mycologists on here, let's back up.
Yes.
What is a fungi? Is it a plant? Is it an animal? Like, where does it fall on the spectrum of things?
Tree
in
of
the
life.
list? Yes.
Mhm.
I mean, I have that slide. Do you want me to show the tree of life real quick?
Yeah,
Yeah, let's
that would
see
be
it.
helpful.
Okay. So I'm not sure if everybody can see this. This is heavy on the science. I use this in my science classes, right? So, you're all familiar with the bacteria. I'm not sure if you can see my
Yeah, you can see it.
okay. So there's the bacteria over here. There's Archaea, and the only thing you really need to know about them is they're like bacteria, but they're pretty different. So we won't really talk about those. Then all this green stuff here is the plants. And then there are things like slime molds and amoeba. And then the fungi and the animals are very close to each other. They're sister groups. So fungi and animals are two of the most closely related groups. If you think about mushrooms and humans, we're not that different from each other when compared to plants or bacteria or other things, which is pretty fascinating.
So we're more closely related to fungi than we are plants. And fungi are more closely to us than plants. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So an interesting fact about that too is because if anyone's ever had a fungal infection, the treatment for fungal infections are really kind of nasty because they're toxic to the fungi, but these treatments are toxic to humans also. So that's why if you ever take amphotericin or one of those treatments, it's not pleasant.
I just want to point out that I do not have one, but I know.
Okay.
I was like,
For a friend.
I'm telling for a friend who's not
I've heard
on
from
tonight,
friends
I know,
that's awful
so.
too. So
Yes.
oh man. What kind of, we know a little bit about where they fall in tree of life. What types are there? We were just talking before we started tonight. We know that the mushrooms that you see in the forest, like what everyone, the little emoji of that cute red mushroom.
Little toadstool mushroom.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's a fungi. But there's more to fungi than those fruiting bodies.
Like,
Is that
like the bread that we make?
right?
The yeast in there, is that fungi?
Right.
Like,
Yeah,
talk to us
the weird
about-
stuff in the back of the fridge, like yeah, let's hear about that. What are the different types?
So I mean, the fungi are incredibly diverse. Most of the fungi that we're used to seeing are in this group that are called the basidiomycetes. Those would be your typical mushrooms, things that were coming up in lawns. There are mushrooms that are not basidiomycetes, that are ascomycetes. So morel mushrooms are in a different group, are in the ascomycetes. Truffles are also in that group. And that group also has yeasts and a lot of the fungi that you find in your refrigerator, penicillin, or, that comes from penicillium, is common refrigerator mold. Those are ascomycetes. A lot of our plant pathogens are ascomycetes, although there are basidiomycete plant pathogens too. And then in the early fungi are a bunch of, when we were talking earlier about the birth of fungi, fungi started out as aquatic organisms. So the early what are called early diverging, the early ancestors of fungi are all aquatic. So they break down material that's in aquatic systems. And then there's, the fungi kind of evolved and changed. The early fungi, there's groups of fungi that are specific, that evolved with insects. The Entomopterales is the name of that group. They're insect fungi. A group of fungi that I study that are mycorrhizal fungi that are associated with plant roots. Those are also in that early diverging group of fungi. So another
like
group.
The ancestor, the prehistoric, the OGs. The
OGs, the original, and then the other big group in that is like the bread molds that you'll see.
Okay.
So those are in early diverging fungi also. So
but when I see it on my bread, it's like basically dinosaur fungi. Instead of being super upset that we just wasted a loaf, I can like appreciate that.
Oh, you don't eat.
And that. Okay, well, that's very cool.
So kind of talking about those different types, I know you mentioned there's lots of different ones, like you said, the ones that you see in your refrigerator, or all these different shapes and sizes and patterns of them. Is there like a common anatomy to a fungi? Or when you look at one, is it the mushroom that we see sprouting, or is there more to the story that we don't see on the surface? Chance, do you want to allude to that? I know you do a lot of stuff with those oak woodlands down in southeast Nebraska.
We're talking the anatomy of a basic fungus, basically, or say a mushroom forming
just
fungus.
Your basic Tuesday night stuff. Yeah.
So basically, what you see, if speaking of mushroom forming fungi, what you see above ground is technically the fruit of the organism. A lot of folks think that that is the whole organism, but it's essentially like the apple on a tree almost. And what's going on below that mushroom is a network of filamentous tissues called hyphae, basically almost like a cobweb is not really a good way of explaining it, but it almost looks like a spider web, but interwoven underneath in the soils, or if the mushroom's growing on a tree, those that network is actually embedded in the wood, and it's actually actively digesting. So that part of the fungus is actually the vegetative or the feeding portion of the fungus. And of course, when you have a fruiting fungus, or the underground portion is called mycelium. And from that fruiting body above ground, the mushroom, you have spores that are released from the fungus as well. So those are kind of like the three main things. Off of the mycelium, there are, if you want to talk about the individual hyphae or tissue strands that branch off that network, those are just called hyphal strands. Usually these hyphae strands will kind of pioneer the soils or the substrate that it's growing in, looking for food or other things like that. So those are kind of like the main ones.
The main ones. Okay.
So are there certain habitats that fungi prefer and or don't prefer? Like I always hear, at least in Nebraska, you're mostly finding on the eastern side of the state. Is that just because of the
Is it
rain
moisture?
and the moisture? Like I don't really think I would ever see one in the sandhills. Or is that, well, actually you would, but
Yeah, well, in the state, speaking, there are mushrooms everywhere, generally. But yeah, you're definitely right. On the east side, we have what seems to be a lot more diversity, and the moisture content would definitely be a big portion of that. But also, you want to look at the environments that these mushrooms are growing in. These environments on the eastern half of the state have a lot more tree diversity, is the big one. So usually where there's a lot more plant diversity, there's more mushroom diversity. And a big, I guess just the further east you are, the more tree species there are for special relationships between mushrooms and these trees or the substrate that they grow on.
That makes me kind of think, for Chance or Josh, it makes me think, if there are more mushrooms in places with more precipitation or moisture or whatnot, does that have anything to do, is because the OG where they originated was the aquatic organism, so they just haven't moved? Like, I guess I don't know what my question is, I'm just excited, but are there can mushrooms grow in very arid places, or is it just like not
quite there yet?
Maybe not get there yet? Yeah. I don't know. Josh, do you speak to that?
Sure, there are mushrooms that have evolved to live in desert-like areas. They don't. They tend not to fruit or create the mushroom, the apple from the hyphae, so to speak, unless there's a lot of rain. So in the monsoon seasons in the Southwest, you'll have a lot of fungi popping up in places. But they live everywhere, but fungi have some of the highest requirements for water content of any organisms. So they need a lot of water to grow and to survive. So this is why we tend to see them in wetter places, and why they pop up after rains. That's what causes them, but they are everywhere, and fungal spores are everywhere. Every moment you take a breath, you're breathing in, millions of fungal spores. So.
Oh, that's a lovely thought.
Yes.
That's great. Speaking of spores, maybe, I don't know, but I've heard some really cool, fascinating stories of how fungi actually communicate both with each other and even like trees and plants. And it sounds kind of funny to say communication when we're humans. We think, they're chatting, but is it through that mycelium network? How do fungi communicate with each other or other plants? Do you guys know anything about that? Because I think that's really cool.
Chance, you wanna go first there?
I don't know too much on the subject, I'll be honest. I do know that mycelia, or the one organism, say one species of mushroom, they'll send out those hyphal strands to either look for food and stuff. And I know that that hyphal strand that's furthest away from, say, the mass of mycelium can communicate with the whole body of the fungus. But as far as how it communicates with trees and stuff like that, I'm not too sure on all that. So maybe you can touch up on some of that.
Yeah, this is pretty close to my research area.
Oh,
so
sweet. Cool.
Good.
Yeah. So for instance, the mycorrhizal fungi, and the word mycorrhizae just basically means fungus root. And so what happens is there's different types of these associations, but actually then they're very, when you think about Nebraska grasslands, the mycorrhizal fungi and grasslands are very diverse here. So, and what happens is the fungi grow on the roots of the plants. And fungi are sitting in their food and they're eating, their stomachs are outside of the hyphae. So they're breaking down with the food outside of their bodies with chemicals and they're bringing it inside the hyphae. And so at that point, they're able to move nutrients in and out. So that makes fungi really good at getting things like nitrogen and phosphorus that are needed by plants. So plants will use fungi and the fungi will give nitrogen and phosphorus and other micronutrients to the plant. And plants are really good at making sugar, getting CO2 from the atmosphere and fixing it into sugars. So they feed the fungi in exchange for giving nutrients. And that's how that network takes place. There's a lot of questions that we have as scientists, exactly the fine tuning of that network. But the interesting thing is, for a long time, Suzanne Simard, who's gotten a lot of attention, she was in the Fantastic Fungi movie. Her research, for like more than 20 years now, has been studying the chemicals that fungi connect with. And so one tree can communicate to another tree, not by touching each other, but by sending messages through the fungal network that are touching each root of each plant. And it's possible, we don't understand this as scientists, but it's possible for an older tree that is able to fix more carbon to pass carbon to an understory tree that maybe doesn't get as much light.
Like those mother trees.
Like these mother trees, yeah. And it's a fascinating thing and we don't fully understand how it works yet. So
she has some incredible books out now. And I saw her TED Talk a few years ago and it like blew my mind and it made me think completely differently about fungi. So maybe we'll send that in the resources.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
And one of the really cool articles I just saw recently is not only do we understand that fungi can communicate, like you were saying, through those synapses, but they're maybe thinking based off studying that there's patterns in those, like little electrical synapses, that fungi might have language. And one scientist looked and found up to 50 like patterns of this, which what you would equate to like 50 words. Right. So cool. I feel like there's so much that we don't know about fungi and there's lots to learn. So it's fascinating.
So the stuff that we do kind of know is like you always hear about morels in the spring and everyone wants to go forage morels or puffballs in the fall. Can you both kind of talk to us a little bit about maybe some of the diversity that we have in Nebraska? Like, are there bad ones to eat or not good ones, or good ones to eat, or ones that you can put in a salad?
Like the ones that we would see if we're hiking around.
Yeah, if you're hiking around, what are you going to see? And kind of talk to us a little bit about the differences.
Nebraska's
diversity.
Chance, why don't you start with that one?
So are there bad ones? We can start off with that maybe.
Sure.
So I can at least say that we have at least 2 deadly ones that I have come across in my experiences in the woods. And they go by the name of the Destroying Angel and the Deadly Gallerina. And besides that, I'm sure there's, I don't know how many, but there are plenty of mushrooms that will make you sick. Plenty of edible ones, and then ones that are just considered not edible, mainly because they may be too leathery. They're just not big enough to really even consume. We actually have quite a large diversity of mushrooms here in Nebraska, a little bit more, or a lot more on the southeast portion of the state. But yeah, I guess I don't know where else to go besides if there's any more specifics of that question. It's kind of a broad one.
Yeah. Well, maybe that will lead us into just thinking about, a lot of the participants who joined us tonight were asking about foraging. And I know that we think it's pretty cool too, to be able to go out and find a mushroom to eat, not die.
Yeah.
But
I
to
just
like
want
put
to
it on
find
your...
them and have someone else eat them.
Well,
I'm not a huge mushroom person, but I like to look at them and
exactly.
put one in my salad.
But what we wanted to know, are either of you, in that foraging field of mushrooms, are you interested in that? Have you done it? What does that look like for you? Or like just share some of that cool experience. And then, especially foraging here in Nebraska as well. But go ahead, Chance or Josh.
As far as foraging, that's certainly something I picked up. I'm not a hunter by any means. My whole family is big on hunting, and I was just kind of the odd child that maybe I just don't have the patience for it. But I enjoy hunting for mushrooms just because it's a great opportunity to get out in the woods, usually where I hunt. And I just find a lot of value of being able to take something from the land and bring it home to eat, either for medicinal reasons or just for sustenance. There's just something really fun to that to me.
Or Josh, let's hear your experience too, but I want to know like your favorite tastiest mushroom that you've had from Nebraska.
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I've been collecting I've been collecting fungi for 25 years. So when I first started collecting, I got really excited. I ate a lot of things. I don't forage as much now. Also, like I have a lot of perspective from identifying a lot of poisoning cases. So I know what people, I know a lot of things that people eat. And I think most of the time when we have poisoning cases, people eat something that's just not fresh. I mean, it may be a really good edible mushroom, but they picked it at the wrong time. So, and I will say this as like the interesting thing about fungi is because they're ephemeral, they haven't really evolved a lot of toxins the way that plants are. So if you're going to forage for plants, you have a lot greater chance of finding something that's poisonous than you do just going after fungi. My thing with fungi is, probably 1% of the fungi are good edibles. Maybe less than 1% are poisonous or will make you sick. And then the rest just kind of, as one of my friends would say, cardboard tastes better. So you have to like find the right ones. I love probably my ultimate favorite thing to eat are black trumpets, the black chanterelles. Those are one of my most favorite things. Morels are great. I love hunting for truffles and been doing that for a while. I worked in France for a year and I worked at a truffle farm there for a while. So that was really great. And I got a lot of experience on how to find them. But it takes a little bit of time. And I will say, identifying a lot of poisoning cases, there are a lot of fungi that are easy to identify, but then there's some that are very difficult. So for people who are just kind of starting out, puffballs are a great example of something where you really can't go wrong. I do identify a lot of morel poisonings because there are, false morels and other things that people eat a lot are often a common thing that I get called about. But with a little bit of work, you can identify the morels pretty easily. And one thing I see a lot here in Nebraska are the pheasant backs, and people seem to really like those. They're not something I really enjoy eating, but people like those, and they're coming out right about now.
I don't know if I've even heard of those. I've heard of turkey tail, but not pheasant back.
They also go by the name dryad saddle.
Okay.
But you've probably seen them just venturing through the woods. They're really, really common.
Are they like kind of like almost styrofoam when they come off? Okay.
Oh, I've seen those.
They're kind of like a shelf-like projection off the tree, and they have pores on the underside. And if you actually smell it, it smells very reminiscent of watermelon rind. It's like to the T, at least to me.
Watermelon?
Huh, that's interesting.
It's very fascinating.
Chance, what's your favorite tastiest mushroom that you like to go for?
I can actually share. I have a picture of it. See if I can figure that out. Okay, so this is my favorite edible that I come across here in the woods in Nebraska. It's called hen of the woods, also known scientifically as Grifola frondosa. It grows at the base of hardwood trees. It has a really big affinity for oak trees. I haven't seen it on anything else than an oak. Not to say that it doesn't occur, but you find this one in the fall months, and they call it hen of the woods or maitake, but hen of the woods because it kind of almost looks like a hen hiding at the base of a tree. And they get pretty substantial in size. They can get up to 30 pounds.
Wow.
And maitake actually translates to the dancing mushroom. And I don't quite know the, in Japanese, if I'm correct. And I don't really remember the story with that name, but I'd say it's a pretty good name because, I mean, once you find this mushroom, you have a lot of it. So I mean,
How's it taste?
I'm a really bad person to ask about flavor profiles. So Josh, if you have any idea, feel free to chime in. But what I like about it is it has this really meaty like texture. If you if you had chicken gizzards before, you know how chicken gizzards are chewy, but they have that kind of crunch to them, like a satisfying crunch. This mushroom is very similar in that respect. Not nearly as tough as a gizzard, but they're fun to eat and they're plentiful. So
That's cool.
it's almost a burden when I find it, because I know that I usually won't be able to cook it all, and a lot of people, they see mushrooms besides morels and they get freaked out. So I can't quite pound it off to anybody that'll eat it either. So, but it's a really cool one to come across in the woods in the fall.
This is one of my favorites too. I love it. Like Chance said, you find them in great abundance. One year I collected over 175 pounds of maitake.
Did you have a feast?
I gave them to people, and then my freezer was filled with them.
Man, it's a lot. I don't know why we didn't have. I don't know why this isn't in person, and we're also trying
Like a
these
mushroom
things.
party.
Like that needs to happen next time. I guess.
Great, but
Right.
yes.
Fungi fiesta.
Yeah. Fungi
Okay,
fiesta.
there
I
it
like
is.
that,
Yep.
Yes. All right. So talking about like those fungi nerds that are out there that maybe don't really want to do the foraging aspect or the food aspect, but like more of the science aspect behind it. Is there a way that you can grow mushrooms in your house, or talking about those mycological pursuits? So maybe I know there's places like the Mycological Society. Is there something that if they're not really a forager, but they want to get involved and be a mycologist? I know there's like the City Nature Challenge that I think Chance is going to talk a little bit about, the iNaturalist project. So talk a little bit about how maybe people can get involved without, foraging for them.
Enthusiastic beginners.
Yes.
On the science of fungi in Nebraska.
I'd say, I mean, it really just starts with getting out there and taking photos and putting them out there. And iNaturalist is like, it's the perfect platform to do that. I mean, you really don't have to know much about mycology to make a difference as far as, adding to science or whatever. The main things you want to know about if you want to add these things to iNaturalist is you want to know what to take photos of or what to document. And really, once you have all this information, you put it out there, it's out there publicly for someone else that has more knowledge to see what you had posted, and they can potentially, at least get it down to a genus level, or, identify it confidently based on what's there. So I think that is a tremendously great start. And just iNaturalist is built so well to where it's almost a learning platform too, because if your photos are good enough, the iNaturalist, it's an artificial intelligence, can actually look at your photos, and based off of the other photos submitted, it can actually almost identify it for you. So it's not true all the time. It may be way off sometimes. So, but it's a great platform to get started. It helps you group mushrooms based on their scientific taxon, their nomenclature, their names and everything. That would be my start if you wanted to get into kind of a citizen science approach to it.
And that's just for anyone in listening who has never heard of iNaturalist before. It's this incredible app that you can get on your phone.
It's free.
It's free.
Mm-hmm.
You take a photo of a thing. I use it on birds, bugs, fungi, lichen. I'm a big lichen iNaturalist.
You like lichen?
I like lichen. Yes.
Lichen are fungi.
Exactly. Why don't we have lichen questions?
I don't know. We'll
Okay.
think of
Anyways,
else. Okay.
So you take a photo of a nature thing, plant, anything, and you upload it. And like as Chance said, it's a community of other scientists or community scientists who then can help identify. And so not only is it cool and a learning tool, at least I find it to be a learning tool for myself, but also you're contributing to data, to science data. Chance, do you, or Josh, I didn't want to cut you off, but do you have something?
I just wanted, since you said that about data,
Yeah.
As a mycologist who's studying species distributions, like where
Mhm.
mushrooms are found, and the iNaturalist data is really amazing, because we mine that in my laboratory
No
to
kidding.
try to identify what is rare, what is found. We actually have a study coming out that is using complete data from iNaturalist and Mushroom Observer website. And one of the things that we're trying to do there is document what fungi are rare. So because we don't have a lot of knowledge on fungi, there are very few cases where we've put fungi on endangered species lists. So we're trying to use that information from iNaturalist to try to document extremely rare things so that they can be protected.
That's incredible. That's very cool. That's a cool perspective, Josh, because I know that we use iNaturalist on the user side of the interface so much, and I just love it. But to hear a scientist saying we are actually doing a paper just from,
and they're using that actual data that people are doing.
That's amazing. And Chance, didn't you start or something the Nebraska fungi iNaturalist? Can you speak to that, like the overall umbrella project that you have looking at Nebraska fungi?
So that was created by one of folks in our Mycological Society. It's basically, like you said, anything documented on iNaturalist that is within Nebraska's borders will automatically get put on this. It's called a project or a page where it puts anything that someone has called a fungus. It puts it under this group, and basically a lot of us folks on the Mycological Society are going through this page, and we're helping identify to the best of our abilities what people are finding out there.
That's incredible.
So yeah, it's really fun.
Yeah, and kind of a segue from that community science, citizen science aspect. But we spoke at the beginning about an event coming up in a few weeks, the City Nature Challenge. This is a massive global community science event that's happening in Nebraska, statewide, but also in 5 cities and areas. Allie, would you like to speak about that briefly if you can, because we want to hear about it and how our participants tonight can get involved if they would like to.
Yeah, of course. I'm just going to share my screen really quick. So the City Nature Challenge is an international event. It's organized on a global level by the California Academy of Sciences and the Natural History Museum of Los Angeles. And essentially it's using iNaturalist, that app we've been talking about, and it's finding as much urban biodiversity as possible within a 4-day period. And so, for example, last year during the 2021 challenge, we had 400 cities across 44 countries participate, and we broke over 1 million observations on iNaturalist. So it's iNaturalist's biggest data input of the year. And it's a really fun event because you can just get out, look for signs of spring, look for nature in your city, and contribute, take a picture and add it to iNaturalist. If you're in one of the participating cities, which in Nebraska, that would be Omaha, Lincoln, Norfolk, North Platte, and Scottsbluff areas. If you're in one of those participating cities, it'll automatically put your observations into those projects. If you're not in a participating city, you can still help and contribute to the City Nature Challenge. You just have to join the global project. And I'll put a link in the chat for our webpage for the CNC in Nebraska. And you can find all of the links to those different projects on that page. So yeah, it should be a really fun event, and it's going to take place April 29th through May 2nd for that observation period. And then we'll have a week following where we'll try to identify all of the observations we find. So if you have any, like you're a fungi nerd, we would love you to come on and help us identify all the fungi found in Nebraska.
That's amazing. Are you participating in that?
Yeah, me
Okay.
and Tori.
Are you going to get all the birds, or?
I think we both know it's going to be the reptiles.
Okay, that's fine. I'll stick to like the fungi, lichen, and bugs.
Okay.
Okay.
We can cover all the
Yep,
subjects.
absolutely.
Yeah.
So exciting. Thanks so much, Allie, for sharing about that. And we're excited to see how many records we get this year in Nebraska, especially fungi ones as well. So I feel like we've learned a lot tonight, like way more than I anticipated that we were going to learn. And my bar was up here, so I'm excited about what a fungi is and some fungi across Nebraska. Incredible experts here with really cool, diverse backgrounds on this. I want to ask you now more of the why of fungi, which is kind of my most exciting. Those are my most exciting questions, I think. Can you tell us what a world without fungi would be like for humans. So speak to we didn't really hit on that just quite yet, but the importance of, how do they relate to us? How are they important to us? And we have to do the spin of how does it matter to humans, right? What would it be like without fungi in the world for us?
I like to think that I like to start off by thinking about the decomposer fungi and how important they are, especially thinking about habitats. So for starters, we wouldn't have nearly as much habitat unless something else stepped up to the plate. When trees die and everything, when there's this crude wood laying around in a habitat, usually nothing else breaks it down. Fungi kind of set the stage for decomposition for these pieces of biomass, and until fungus jumps in and starts breaking it down, nothing else really breaks down this biomass. So if we didn't have, say, the decomposing fungi, we would have basically habitats that are choked out with dead organic matter.
Wow.
So who's to say where we would even be in the first place? And then also thinking about the transition from aquatic to land, fungus also, from what I understand, played a big role as far as plants becoming terrestrial.
Wow.
Through these mycorrhizal connections that Josh had talked about previously.
Kind of like pioneering that ecological niche.
Yes.
Cool.
Those are the two big ones I can certainly think of.
Okay.
Like Chance said, fungi are the only organisms that can break down wood. Nothing else can do it. So just fungi. There's the brown rotters and the white rotters, which break down cellulose and lignin in wood. Cellulose because it's just paper, and everybody uses paper. So without fungi, we would have all that organic matter building up. But fungi are important. They're major plant pathogens, they're major animal pathogens. I mean, we have to be concerned with them if we're going to feed and fuel the world. So those are big concerns. And our world as we know it would not have evolved if it wasn't for the fungi helping the land plants get on land. So
you're saying we owe like just a little bit to them.
A little bit.
Us being
A
here.
little bit,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's good. I like it.
Yeah, so we talked about them with our past and how they're important for what we do now. But what about like for our future? What does the future of fungi look like? I've seen there was a person in Nebraska up in, I think, the North Fork area that holds the record for making a canoe all of fungi. So
And now she's trying to make bee homes out of them because they have these like cool antibacterial
Yeah.
properties.
So
Like
they're more than just the breakdowners and the decomposers of that wood. I've also heard people, styrofoam is incredibly not sustainable and it's wasteful. I've heard a lot of people talk about making styrofoam out of fungi.
is the future of fungi.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's good.
Absolutely. I'll mention that the things that you can do with fungal mycelium are pretty amazing. I'm working with some researchers here to develop fungi that can be used for packing materials, but also building materials. So the idea would, you have a very strong structure. Right now, the fungi that we're trying to study, not sure where that noise is coming from, but the fungi that we're trying to study are being used for materials to build airplanes because they're really strong and light. But then also the idea is that if you have a living structure such as that you've incorporated into a building, that if there's a damage to that building, then that building structure can regenerate or can regrow. It's a really kind of fascinating concept of using fungi to make our living spaces better.
There's like fungi engineers is a future career, is what you're telling me.
That's what Sawyer can do.
Oh my
Or
gosh.
Tori or
Yes,
anybody.
absolutely. Future kids out there. Okay.
Besides some of the structural builds with that, I have seen there's a company or probably a few companies going at it now, but they're creating meat substitute with fungi, and this like fake steaks, so to speak, where they basically have this big old vats and they grow mycelium, but they can control how it grows to where it almost can mimic the texture of meat. And I mean, they add like, I don't know, maybe beet juice or something for like the blood or whatever, but it sounds like they're starting to make some moves on having fungus as a meat substitute. So it's really fascinating. So it could be helpful as far as like the beef industry and stuff like that.
You can buy products that are called under the brand name Quorn, Quorn, and those are entirely made by fungi. It's a fake meat.
Have you tried this, Josh?
Yeah, I've had them a couple of years ago. Yeah, they're actually, believe it or not, they're made out of fusarium and a couple other fungi that are pathogens, which are interesting, but they grow pretty well and they're edible. They're pathogens to plants, but they grow fast and they have a lot of protein content. So yeah, I thought they were good.
Wow.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So the future is definitely fungi
It sounds like
in
it.
everything.
The
So
past was and the future is. And
that's crazy.
That's awesome.
So talking about all the stuff that we talked about tonight and learning and discussing, why should Nebraskans especially care about our fungi diversity? And if they do care about this, besides joining and participating in the City Nature Challenge, how can they get involved? What would, I know there's like the Mycological Society, but go ahead and talk to us about why should we care about that diversity and what can people do to help with that? And yeah, you want to speak on that, either of you?
I think it's important to know more. I mean, we just don't know enough about our mushroom diversity here in the state. So a lot of the times when I'm finding stuff out in the woods, something maybe I haven't encountered before, but I know what it is, I'll look up the distribution records of these mushrooms and see if it's been recorded here in the state, either on iNaturalist or through herbarial records, which is more of an official record because usually you have a specimen to observe. So that that's super important. Most of when I look at these records, there's a huge gap between right now and say 100 years ago. A lot of the records I come across are from like 2 folks in the past, and they're from 1920s and 1940s. It's just a crazy gap. And then from there, it's just been kind of silence as far as people going out and seeing what's growing out in the woods or in the prairies. And so I think it's really important that we get back out there and we figure out what's in the woods or what's in our state's boundary, excuse me. And a way of doing that is kind of like I was saying with those herbarial records is if you have a mushroom that you're confident in the ID, or you can hang on to it and eventually find out its ID too. You can save this mushroom. You want to document as much as you can regarding the habitat. Maybe is it growing next to this tree? It's growing on this type of wood, and including coordinates if possible. Cell phones are really good for that. You can really do a lot with your cell phone. But if you can save those mushrooms and actually dry them out, you can create an herbarial record, which I got a good old box full of ones I need to take to the Nebraska herbarium. And I mean, it's pretty simple for the most part. You just, you want to bag your dried specimen and have a label on it. I have a very small label at the moment because I still plan on adding, I have more information I need to add to them. But yeah, if you can take them to your herbarium, there's, I think, maybe 3 in the state.
Do you know
one
where they're
in Lincoln,
located? Okay.
Bessie Herbarium in Lincoln. There's one in Chadron, I believe on the school campus. And then I think maybe UNL or UNO might be taking mushrooms as well. And I think Kearney may be working on starting an herbarium, or I think a fungarium, more specific to mushrooms.
I like that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm speaking for the University of Nebraska system. I'm not sure who in Omaha or Kearney would be doing that, but we take them at UNL. I mean, I accept them into my laboratory, but then we also take them to the Bessie. If you there was a question that popped up in the chat, and Chance mentioned this, but I use a food dehydrator. They're pretty, you can buy them online if this is something that you want to do. One, it's handy if you want to eat things in the future. I mean, you can always freeze or cook them and freeze them, but a lot of things are nice dried. I grow shiitake mushrooms and dry them and then just reconstitute them when I want to use them. But it's great for science if you can dry and save your mushrooms, but then also you can, dry your own food too.
That's great. Oh, go ahead. Do you want to ask that question?
Yeah. So Chance, when you were talking earlier about taking photos for iNaturalist, do you have any tips like when I think of taking a photo, I just click and snap. Is there anything that you really need to get so that people can identify them easily? Is there like obviously the color, and you mentioned like where they're growing? Anything else that you would say is a tip for taking those photos?
Sure. I think for starters, it's pretty important to take a photo of the mushroom in its habitat if possible. If someone hands you the mushroom and outside later, you could do it. I mean, you do the best you can. Try get a picture in its habitat, because that can tell you something about. Sometimes you have a leaf that's near it, and that leaf can tell you the tree that the mushroom's either feeding on or connected to. That'd be a good start. Also, having it in its environment with maybe some sort of way to compare size is important. You want to get a shot of, if we're talking about a traditional toadstool, you want a picture of the cap, the stem, and usually a picture of the underside of that cap, because there's a lot of differences between fungi. Some funguses can have gills, which are the traditional folds we're used to seeing underneath. Some could have pores, which are a series of tubes that go up into the mushroom. And then there's also teeth, which are downward hanging spines. So, and a lot of the time, some of these mushrooms look synonymous from the top side. If you just have a picture from the top down, it could be a multitude of things. So having all these different photos can certainly help narrow down identification.
That's really helpful. I feel like I'm gonna step my game up, because one of my favorite things to put on a naturalist is fungi, because they don't move.
Yeah,
Like
take good
birds.
shots. Of
The
them.
best
You're
part,
right.
they're patient.
Yeah,
They wait
so-
for you.
So now I will thank you. That was great, Chance. I'm gonna be stepping my game up. We have one more question for, Josh, do you have something?
I was just going to say, with doing my identification for poison control, I get a lot of really bad photos. So it could save your life if you decide to eat something, you take a really good photo, and for us to help
That's a
identify
good
it.
tip.
Yeah. It's
As
like when you get all the
well.
photos of things that people are
Oh
thinking
my
like mountain lions,
gosh.
but they're actually like house
Mhm.
cats. Like
Mhm.
size is a huge thing.
Or you get a bird photo and it
It's like this much of a bird as it flies away.
like there's 3 pixels in the bird. Yeah. We have one more question for you, and then we're going to try to do a quick lightning round. I know we're approaching 8. We had so many incredible questions tonight, though. So maybe we go a few minutes if you guys want to stick around. Our last question for you as our experts is, we learned a lot about fungi. It seems like you guys both are really excited about them and interested and curious. And now that we know that fungi maybe has language, I don't know, supposedly. It's
I
kind
know
of
you've
cool.
been waiting to ask this
I'm
question.
so excited. I want to ask you, if you could directly communicate with fungi, what would you, and ask it anything, what would you ask of fungi? I know it's a really silly one, but
That would be an amazing superpower, first of all.
first, that's your superpower that you would choose. Got it, Chance. Okay.
I think what I would love about that is I would love to figure out every nuance or every environmental condition a specific fungus has for a mushroom to pop, because there's so many times where I go to a spot where I know there's a species of mushroom there, but it's yet to be there at the right time, at the right place, right time. So it would be nice to know what environmental conditions need to be there for that mushroom to pop, because there's some scenarios where there's a mushroom that I'm looking for back in the woods that I hadn't seen in 4 years. So, and I'm going back at the same time frames, and I think it's one that is pretty rare, or I don't really ever come across it. So that would be my superpower, or why I would want to talk to mushrooms.
I like it. That's great. Very cool. Josh?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I want to know what fungi are thinking, and that would be something interesting. But I mean, like Chance said, when I was in Oregon working for as the state mycologist, we had situations where there was a fungus that someone collected in the 1950s, and we had not found it since then. And so we had a group of individuals that were just going out and looking for it. So trying to understand what the environmental conditions that would cause that fungus to fruit or not fruit for 50 years was really kind of fascinating. And that area of fungal diversity is an area that I think we really do need a lot of help, and a lot of our citizen scientists can help us with that.
That's great. That's good. Those are good questions for fungi.
Yeah.
Do you have a question that you would ask? Because I mean, I have.
How about you go first?
Okay. I think it would be incredible, especially like those mycelium networks, to ask or figure out if mushrooms have some kind of memory, if they're able to pass along that information. Are they able to, based on the environmental stimulus and share those resources, are they able to retain it in any type of long-term, like a memory almost? I don't know. That's a really weird one, but that would be cool.
Be cool to like hear like the history. Like talk
Mhm.
to me about how you went from aquatic life to where we are now.
Yes.
Like
the
the
origin
history
story.
of you. Yes, the
Mhm.
origin story. Let's talk to that very first one.
Yeah. That's good. Okay.
So-
Are you ready? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say answer that. So, most organisms do have a memory of what they've come across. So, if a fungus is experiencing a lot of drought, they'll change the way that their biochemistry works in order to better, withstand that.
Did you just answer my like
You
ultimate
just-
fungi
You
question?
just talked to a fun guy.
This is okay. He's my hero. That's amazing. Very cool. Thank you for that. Are you guys ready for just a quick lightning round? We had so many good questions, and I know it's 7:59, maybe like
We
3
can do
minutes.
2 or 3
Yeah.
questions here.
Mhm.
So at this point in our program, we like to just answer some questions that came in when people registered, if we haven't answered them already. So we'll just ask them and then just kind of a quick response, either Chance and or Josh, you can do your input. But one of them that we had, what are the most common edible fungi in Nebraska? I know we talked a little bit about the morels.
Maybe the easiest if
Yeah.
I'm getting started or something.
Yeah, if I want to go forage, which ones are easy to identify and which are common ones when they come across?
Josh, I think you touched up on puffballs would certainly be a good one for starters if you wanted to get into harvesting them. I also think that oyster mushrooms are another good one. They also grow around the whole state. Usually on hardwood trees, you'll find them, and you can find them growing on live trees, also eating kind of the dead portions of that tree. And a lot of the times you can find them year round.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Good.
during warm spurts or the winter, you can find them. And there's
Oh.
several different species. Yeah.
Okay.
Interesting.
What about this one? I feel like I saw a lot of this in the chat.
Yeah.
Can either of you speak to, and I know this isn't the wild mushrooms, but just a quick, cultivating wild mushrooms at home. Is it something that people can do? Is it doable? Is it easy? Just like a really quick, I don't know. We can, and also if you have a good resource, we can share it in our evaluation. But
It depends. I'll speak because I saw the questions in the chat room. Somebody asked, can they grow morels? I have a graduate student and his PhD work is trying to learn how to grow morels. And there are groups that are growing morels right now. The issue with growing morels is the strains that they are using. Sorry, that was my dog.
okay.
The strains that they're growing are specialized for growing. So not every morel that you're going to collect, especially the ones in Nebraska, you're going to be able to grow. Morels are fruiting from sclerotia. So when they do that, they come up in the same spot year after year. So
Okay.
we're working as scientists on trying to get morels. A lot of the things that are easier to grow, like oyster mushrooms or shiitakes that you could grow at home, are fairly easy. A lot of these are wood decomposers, but the fungi that are typically the root associated fungi that are good edibles, like boletes or other things like that, are pretty close to impossible to grow at home.
Okay.
So.
That's good.
I know you mentioned earlier, both of you talked a little bit about some of we don't really have toxic mushrooms, we don't have to worry about it. But Josh, you mentioned something about they're just not being fresh. Is there like a key thing that you can look at to say, okay, these are not fresh mushrooms, or is there an identifying feature that's easy for people to know about that?
Great question. And I don't know if I have a really good answer. If a fungus like a mushroom is pretty firm, I think that's a good knowing it's fresh. I'll say that I don't want to discourage people from foraging when they're just beginning, but I really think it's best to really get to know fungi over, know what they look like, know that in science, we call it the plasticity, the changeability of a lot of fungi can look different over time. So just getting to know them, and you'll kind of get an idea of what looks fresh and what is not fresh. I think a lot of the poison cases that I deal with are just, if I do get good mushroom. I'm like, oh, I don't think I would ever eat this, but people get excited and they want to eat something they find, so just something that's firm, just like fresh produce. When things get wilty and kind of are droopy, then I would avoid those things.
Yeah,
Bug
like any,
infestation is also another, can be a key
Mhm.
feature too.
Mhm.
Okay.
yeah,
That's
just
good.
like any, vegetable that you would have in your fridge. If it's wilty and
Once it gets a
gross,
little
you probably-
slimy.
Probably don't want to eat it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's good to know. Do you think that's all? Or should
Do
we
you,
ask
I
them?
know a couple people asked in the chat, do you guys have a good single resource that you
Mm.
would kind of point to people about if they wanted to start identifying or learning about them? Do you guys have your go-to guide? Is there something that you would recommend?
That's a good question. Maybe a good last one.
There's
Yeah.
a book that it's kind of my go-to book as far as an identification guide. I don't have it on me. It's actually in my truck up or outside, but it's called Mushrooms of the Midwest by Michael Quo. It's a good one because it focuses on this area, the Midwest, because a lot of the times you can have look-alike mushrooms that are either on, or that may be on the West Coast that aren't actually what you're looking at. So it's important to have something regionally specific. And I think Michael Quo does a really good job as far as illustrations and then also descriptions of these mushrooms. The only take back that I have as far as for like a beginner is it doesn't have very many common names. But a
Mm.
common name is something you can Google the Latin name, and a lot of times you can come up with a common name. So
I think is it Tuka who was holding up the book, maybe.
Could we possibly spotlight you there for a second? You want to hold up that book that you had?
Yep.
Thank you.
nailed it.
There we go.
Excellent. Very cool.
Thank you.
And all of these resources, by the way, we'll add to the email that we send out so that everyone can have links to this. But that's excellent, Chance. Josh, do you have a similar one, a different one? Any other resources?
Oh boy, I don't know. I've been collecting field guides for a long
I
time.
know,
I
that's like-
probably have like 100 of them.
Go back to your beginner mindset.
Yeah,
Even rich-
Michael,
yeah.
Mike Koo's book's really good. That's a great regional one. I really like a lot of Alan Bassett's books. They are not necessarily in print right now. Probably I could run downstairs and get it at my house, but there's a really, really nice new European set that even though it's not really specific for Nebraska, just generally learning the anatomy and the colors and other things that are for fungi. This new set is really nice.
Are they these ones?
Oh yeah, those are
Wow.
that is
They're
though that's
backwards.
what I'm talking about.
Fungi
Yes,
of
thank you.
Temperate Europe. There's volume 1 and 2. You can, and like you said, it just ton of information, and it's good for learning, what families certain fungi are in.
Cool.
Yeah, those
Sounds
two
like-
books are really amazing, and they're pretty new. They've come out in the last couple of years, so those are great
Excellent.
books.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and
There's so
like-
many resources.
Yeah, and like Amber said, we'll go ahead and put some of those in the chat as well. We'll link to them, so some of you that are interested in them, you can find them easier. So
I saw someone ask, hey, can I get a recording of this later? We will be sending out the link to this recording. So if this was a lot of information for folks tonight, you can rewatch it as many times as you'd like.
Yeah.
And learn more.
absolutely.
And also we will be sending out all these resources as well. And then Josh and Chance's contact information, if that works for you guys. If you have further questions, you can reach out to them, as well as the Nebraska Mycological Society.
Yeah, I
right?
know they're on Facebook. You can possibly ask to join their group. I'm not sure of the rules of that. It might be pretty easy to do that, but I know you can look for those as well. So
Yeah, we can add the Nebraska Mycological Society website, and then from there, there's a bunch of ways of getting in contact with us.
Very cool. Well, thank you both so much. This was incredible. I learned a lot. I thought I was a mycologist,
I
enthusiast,
mean, you can be now.
but now I just like we're checking the level. Yeah. What a fun time. Fun, guys.
Yeah, and also we just want to let you guys all know that next month too, we will be doing it'll be on May 17th for our next Nebraska Dinner Night, and we will be talking all about kind of the wildlife research that is happening as far as Nebraska Game and Parks goes in our state. So lots of different types of projects that are going on and letting kind of the public understand and know what's happening with our wildlife. So
We're
please come
also-
join us.
We're also taking it to the road in the next day, May 18th, Wednesday. We're doing a Nebraska Nature Trivia Night across the state at 5 different locations on the same night. So if we
Yes.
have some Nebraska nature nerds from this program, if they're in Lincoln, Omaha, North Platte,
North Platte, Scottsbluff.
Scottsbluff,
and
and
Norfolk.
Norfolk,
Yep.
Check it out on our Facebook. You can find those events, and you
Those
should
are the
come.
same cities.
City Nature
Yeah,
Challenge.
I
Oh
just
my
realized that.
gosh.
So
We're
thanks,
rocking it.
Allie.
Very cool. All right. Thank you guys so much. Again, thank you, Josh and Chance, and everyone else for your excellent questions. And keep being nerdy and go find some fungi now.
Yeah, go forward.
Yeah.
Find some.
Thank you.
Thanks,
both.
everyone. This is
See
great.
ya, guys.
Bye.
Thanks.